Welcome to Paladin Financial Talk. I'm your host, Jeff Quick, and I'm joined here today by Mr. Dr. Professor Tony Shore.
They call me a lot of things, Jeff. I have a lot of titles. I earned that doctorate from the University of Okoboji.
Very nice, very nice.
My alma mater. And broadcast doctorate there. But seriously, thanks for having me on the show. Good to be here with you. And for our listeners and viewers out there, we've got the man himself, Jeff Quick from Paladin Financial. And Jeff, I always enjoy doing the show with you. We always have fun talking
Absolutely.
before the show, whether it's how miserable our kids have been making us or dealing with our families or what we've been doing for fun. It's
Yes,
great.
yes.
But we do have a great topic today, don't we?
I think so. Should be short and sweet, or short and home sweet home.
Home sweet home. I
Huh?
like it. I
Yeah.
like it. You worked it in. Home sweet home, the name of today's show.
It is, Tony. And for most people, probably yourself included, I know me, typically your first and or second largest asset is oftentimes your home, right? You have your
Yes.
qualified plan, maybe your 401k, your 403b through work, and then you have your primary residence. And usually one of those two is your largest asset.
Right. Yeah, exactly. See, your home is, a lot of people don't think about it that way. They think, okay, I've got, how much money do I have in my 401k?
Right.
How much money do I have in the bank? How much money, stocks or investments or an IRA? But really, their largest asset is probably their home for a lot of people as they head into retirement.
Yeah, oftentimes it is. And one of the biggest questions I often get is, should I pay off my home? And, that is really a financial question that I answer for them. And it's really based on the interest rate. If you can earn a higher rate of return than the interest rate on your residence, don't pay it off, right? Take advantage of those low interest rate loans. So that's one question I often get. But then it's just, like you said, it is a large asset. How can we actually utilize that and take advantage of it?
Right. Well, I want to back up there a second because I know you said you get a question from a lot of people who, they hear you should really be debt free going into retirement, but they might still have a mortgage. But if their mortgage is at, like my wife and I have a mortgage at 2.9%.
Yeah, that's
right.
great.
So that's great. So some people are like, well, should I use some of my retirement savings, or instead of putting into retirement savings, put money into paying off my house? But let's see, I can make, anywhere between 5 and 10% with my own money here.
Right.
And it's only costing me 2.9% here. You've got to do the math, right? Why not use the bank's money? So there's good debt and bad debt, right?
That's correct. That's correct.
Am I right on that?
You're right. And so I wouldn't recommend somebody pay it off like you with a 2.9% interest rate. You can get a high yield checking account or savings account that'll pay you more than 5%.
Right.
However, if it's always been a financial goal of yours, like I know a lot of people it is,
yes.
If it's going to make you feel good, make you feel secure during your retirement, sometimes it might not be financially the best decision, but, retirement is about happiness, accomplishing goals. If it makes you feel good, go ahead and do it sometimes.
Sure. If you have the money, don't sacrifice your retirement money for it. You don't want to pull out of a 401k or an IRA to pay off your house if you are going to need that money to live on in retirement, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah. So you have to figure out that. So about your house being an asset, though, let's go into that.
Yeah. Well, let's first talk about what is the asset. The asset is the equity, right? The difference between the value of the home and what you owe on it. That's the equity that you have. That's the real value.
Sure.
So, obviously the first thing you do with your home is do what, Tony?
The first thing you do with your home?
You could do.
You could do is just sell it.
Yeah, you could just sell it, right? And take the cash.
Yeah.
Well, what's the problem with selling your home potentially?
Well, if you sell your home, you have to use at least some of that money to buy a new place to live, or you still have to have money to live. You still have to have a home.
Yeah, you're still gonna need a place to live, right? And then there's potential tax implications.
Yes.
Right?
If you sell your house, it might put you in a higher tax bracket if you're banking that money.
It could. Now you do have, right, the exclusion, $250,000 for an individual or $500,000 for a married couple.
Sure.
So if you walk away with $500,000, you and your lovely wife, there's no tax implications. Now, if you go beyond that, you could owe long-term capital gains on anything that exceeds that $500,000. There's other things you need to look at too. If you did a home improvement years ago, maybe you put in a $50,000 new kitchen. Well, that could be taken potentially off of the cost basis as well. So you could, yeah, go ahead and sell your home, take the money and run. Now, there's a couple of criteria that you need to meet, right? You need to have lived in that home for at least 2 of the last 5 years,
Okay.
right? It has to be your primary residence. And those are the main things. Lived there 2 out of the last 5, owned it 2 out of the last 5, and it has to be your primary residence.
Right.
Then you get that exclusion. So
Well,
you
that's
could,
nice.
yeah, you could sell your home and walk away with the cash. And maybe you are at the point where you want to live different places in the country, travel, rent. You do have some other options you could look at.
That's true. Some people, when they retire or right before, they sell their homes and buy an RV.
Yeah.
And use the extra money to live off of and live in an RV for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And then go into a retirement community or wherever. But
Head
I've known
down
people
Route
that have
66, right?
yeah, cruise across the country on
Yeah.
Route 66. But yeah, and RVs aren't cheap. They're as much as some homes right now.
Yeah,
So
correct.
yeah, but that is true. You can do that. So one thing is with your house, you could just sell it and
Yep.
take the profits and do something with that. And to avoid that tax implication or taxes, as long as if you're a couple, it's 500,000 or less. And for a single person, it's 250.
Yep, correct. Correct.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
one option.
Yep.
Second option, a lot of people are familiar with the home equity line of credit, or HELOC,
Yep.
right? I actually recommend most people have a HELOC. There's
Yeah.
no reason not to.
Right.
It's a variable rate loan that just sits there as a line of credit. It's a nice source for, maybe a small emergency where you don't have necessarily the cash on hand, or maybe you don't want to take it out of your retirement account. You could do a short-term loan on a HELOC and pay that back over time. Once you get it paid down, the home equity line of credit is there again. And that's going to be based off the total equity in your home. And depending on the percentage or the line of credit, the rate will be variable based on the usage and interest
Sure.
rates at the time.
Sure.
So that's a great option.
Yeah, a HELOC or a home equity line of credit is a good option. And my wife and I have done that. It works great. That is a good option. I like that option. Obviously, you got to be careful because it is a variable and interest rates have gone up, of course.
Yes.
And so that comes into play, like you say. But those are two good options. You can sell or take out a home equity line of credit, and that way you can use the value of your home.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. Might as well take advantage of it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Loans, right? You could do a loan on your home.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit different. It's going to be
that's different than the home equity line of credit.
Correct. That's going to be typically a fixed rate, right? And it's for typically a larger purchase, right? Or maybe a remodel on your home, which could then in turn increase the equity you have on the home.
Sure.
So you could do a home equity loan as well. The nice thing about both of these is oftentimes you can deduct the interest that you're paying on that loan as well.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So something to take into consideration. You have your loan amount, but then if you back in, talk to your tax professional, find out if it's tax deductible, that could reduce, the interest rate as well, or, a different way to look at it.
Yeah. Talk to your tax professional about that. Boy, I have to think if we've been doing that, I need to check on that because we're paying off a home equity line of credit.
Yeah, something worth looking into.
Yeah.
I know a lot of clients will use it for maybe paying back their child's student loans.
Sure.
You could use it potentially to start a business.
Yeah.
Now there's different, more risky things you could use it for, right?
Sure.
Maybe you don't want to use your home as a backstop for starting a business that may or may not succeed. So different levels of risk depending on what you're doing and what your goals are with it. But a home equity loan is a great option as well.
Sure. So those are a few different options. So we've got just straight out sell.
Yep.
We've got a HELOC or home equity loan, and then we've got a loan based on the value of your house.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
more of a standard loan.
Yeah,
Fixed.
more typical. A lot of
Yeah.
people have done those. Even for debt consolidation is another one, right? Take
Yeah.
a look at what the interest rate maybe is on that home equity line of credit or the home equity loan. It's probably a lot less than the interest rate some people are
Yes.
paying on credit cards.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Opportunity to consolidate that. Maybe you have car loans, student loans. You want to look at all of that stuff. And if there's some savings there, it may make sense to consolidate some other loans against the home and pay that down more quickly by consolidating it and decreasing that interest rate.
Yeah. Yeah.
So a lot
That's
of people
smart.
do that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So are there any other options out there with a house that we could utilize?
Sure. There's the reverse mortgage,
Okay.
right?
Yeah, we hear about that. In fact, there's this ad with a big mustache. The mustache man
Yeah.
does these pitches home equity loans and says it's a good deal. Tom Selleck.
Tom Selleck.
Yeah, I call
I've
him the
seen that
mustache
one.
because his mustache is more famous than he is.
It
I always
probably
say
is.
that. Yeah. Yeah.
The mustache, the Hawaiian
Yeah, shirt,
shirts, the short shorts, and the
yeah.
Ferrari. They are. I mean, those are all great things.
Yeah, yeah. We all love Tom Selleck, but is a reverse mortgage. You hear, used to hear, oh, you don't want to do a reverse mortgage. You never want to get yourself into that.
Right.
Other people are saying, oh, this is a great tool to use. So what's the deal with reverse mortgages,
Sure.
Jeff?
I would say it's probably not the first thing somebody wants to look at utilizing.
Right.
They have changed a lot.
Yeah.
I like to compare everything to a cell phone. It seems simple, right? Your cell phone today versus the cell phones we had available 10 years ago.
Yep.
Much different, right?
Much better. Yeah.
Much better, as are reverse mortgages. They've gotten better at them as they've existed longer. So they've been tweaked and changed. People have become more educated on them. It's not the worst thing in the world. It really depends on your own personal situation. If you need more money to live on and you have all of this equity in your home, why not take advantage of it? And that is one way to do that. And oftentimes people, they want to stay in their home, but they need additional income or money for an emergency, whatever it may be. So it is an option to go and tap into that equity. You can actually receive monthly income based on the amount of equity you have in that home that you can then use for living expenses. And at the end of your time, you have probably somebody listed that's going to inherit the home. Well, maybe you had $500,000 in equity. You've tapped it, used it to enjoy, expand, enhance, enrich your retirement for a handful of years. Well, maybe you've used some equity and now the equity in there is, 250, 200,000 is left. Well, it's still a valuable resource that's going to be passed down to your beneficiary. It allowed you to enjoy or enhance your retirement and stay in your home for the remainder of your life without having to give it up or sell it in order to utilize those resources.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. And so, but before you do any of these things, you should be working with a financial professional like yourself, Jeff, right? And make sure you're going over this with them.
Yes, and that's more just a matter of what options do I have?
Yeah.
Right. I'm not a mortgage expert. There are people you can talk to if that is your only source of equity or potential income. Go talk to a mortgage professional, preferably somebody that is not only a mortgage professional but has expertise in the area of reverse mortgages, and see if it makes sense for you in your own personal situation.
Yeah. Good advice.
Yeah.
Good advice. But also overall, you want to make sure you have a financial professional that you're working with that's looking at the big picture and can steer you in the right direction.
Absolutely. Because there are options. And with that being a big source of your own personal net worth and potential income, there are ways to take advantage of it. And you can, variable risk factors depending on what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
So take advantage of that asset. You could get a loan against, right, the equity. You could do a lot of different things with that. Don't just sit there and have a retirement that is not everything it should or could be. When you have this huge financial resource sitting there, that may make sense for you to use in one aspect or another.
Yeah, that's a great thing. And a lot of people don't think about their house as one of their assets that can be utilized.
Yep.
They think of it as their home, but after all these years, especially if you're getting ready to retire, you've probably got a lot of equity in your house. Most people.
Most people
So,
do,
yeah.
especially with the rate at which home prices have increased,
Oh,
right?
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
know I saw something that 25% in the last few years, the average
Yeah.
increase in home prices.
Yeah, it's nuts. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, they've gone up exponentially.
Yeah.
I mean, since we bought our house, we've been in our house about 26 years, and it's insane. But most of the increase happened in the last couple of years,
Yeah. Yeah. It's been a boom.
which is wild, isn't it? I
Yeah.
mean,
I don't personally see that stopping
no,
anytime
that's kind of the
soon.
trend, and it just I don't see them going down in price.
Right.
I
There
mean,
aren't enough, there's not enough inventory
yeah,
currently.
yeah. I mean, it may stabilize or even out at some point.
Sure.
But yeah, crazy. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't ever see it going down, but it can happen. We'll see what happens.
Yep. So
Yeah.
great resource. And if nothing else, HELOC is great.
Yeah.
And it's also just a backstop. If you're somebody that's trying to maximize your retirement income and your goal is to have your last paycheck bounce, right? I want to spend it all. I worked hard for it. I'm going to do everything I can to end up with zero at the end of my time here.
Yep.
You always have that home to fall back on as well. So people don't think about that equity, and it could be a potential source of income at some point.
Yeah, it could really help you out during your retirement. So great show today, Jeff. We talked about our home sweet home.
Yes.
And that's what it's all about. So I appreciate that. Why don't you let our listeners, before we go, let them know how to get a hold of you?
Absolutely. You can obviously find us on the old interweb, the information superhighway at www.paladinfinancial.com, or you can reach us by telephone at 651-842-8406.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jeff. Great show today. Listeners, that does it for today's episode of Paladin Financial Talk with our host, Jeff Quick.
Thanks, Tony.